apologies for the kind of, janky layout for this. We're not really going to stay in Word very often. We're mostly going to be looking at GTOBase. Hopefully that's a little more visually attractive. But the point is, we are going to study every day this month with GTOBase, digging into a different scenario each day. And first of all, like, what is GTOBase? Well, I made a video. I'll link it in the video description of this video in case you're starting this and you're like, oh, I don't understand what's going on here at all. That video should get you up to speed a little bit. Otherwise, GTOBase basically is a library of solved solutions. It does a bunch of stuff, right? But among other things, there's this library of solved solutions. The cash games are all for 500 NL rake, right? So basically $2, $5. That's a pretty high level of stakes online, and thus the rake is relatively low relative to the stakes, right? I'm currently playing NL 100, NL 200, and so my rake is a lot higher than the NL 500 rake. However, I'm getting about 45% rake back, and because of that, it's probably fairly comparable. But regardless, the idea here isn't to study these things and then obey them like to the letter. The idea is to understand the structures behind why we want to take certain lines, why one particular approach should be effective or not. And these solves all use a 2.5 blind raise first in size, right? So when somebody raises, they're going to make it $2.50 or $12.50 in a 500 NL game, right? So 2.5 blinds. I personally use 2.25. Some people use 3. There's a lot of sizings you can use. So it's important to keep in mind that these solutions are for this sizing, right? And the 3-bet sizes are either 8 big blinds or 11 big blinds. And again, if you change those sizings, all the solutions will change a little bit, but the fundamentals will probably remain basically the same. Also, in these sims, the hijack and the cutoff never cold call, right? They're either going to 3-bet or fold if the Lojack opens, or the cutoff if the hijack opens, I believe. The button can cold call, so allowing those cold calls or not allowing them, if you disallow them, it makes the sim smaller, so it's easier to run, so you can run more. They might have done it for another reason. The hijack probably isn't supposed to call much anyway. The cutoff at a smaller sizing can, and the fact that the sim is structured this way, that the sims are structured this way, means that the Lojack's range might be a little more oriented towards high cards that are blocking the 3-bet range, as opposed to hands that do better when cold called, right? Because they're not getting cold called so much. So that's another thing to keep in mind, that we might want to change our ranges a little bit based on factors like that. Like, there's people behind us who are like, well, they like to cold call, so I want to kind of adjust my range that way. But that's not what we're going to be doing here. Today, basically, there are 8 single raise pot spots, so a raise and a call, and there's 15 3-bet pot spots, which I think they're all a raise, a 3-bet, everybody else folds, and then the original raiser calls. So we're going to look at each one of those on a separate day this month. Today we're going to look at the Lojack raise first in and the big blind calls, and we're going to play through that spot for about 10 minutes. This is kind of the outline. Then we're going to talk about the Lojack's range, the big blind's range, which boards are going to favor which range. And then think about, is the big blind supposed to donk on some of these boards? And we'll look at the solves and it'll tell us that. And then think about, which boards does the Lojack want to like bet their whole range? When do they want to use large sizings? We're going to try and come up with some heuristics and some conclusions, and then do a little bit more practice at the end after the study session. Did I say I was going to train first? Yeah, play through the spot. Okay, so we're going to go up here to trainer first. Right, and we're going to go, it's 6 max cash, we want that, we want NL 500, we're going to use the 100 big blind spot, which is the only thing they have right now. I believe they are going to be continuously adding things here, but we'll see how that goes. I'm also going to try and slow myself down a little bit, because I get really excited when I'm like studying things, and then yeah, it's it's difficult. Okay, so we are going to, I think you can select, basically, yeah, you select one or the other position. Okay, so we'll select under the gun and, start from. So yeah, you could select under the gun and just look at under the gun spots, which is the Lojack. You can select big blind and just look at spots where you're in the big blind. I don't want to do either of those. I'm going to go to this start from here, and we hit the question mark, the search magnifying glass, and it loads some things. And we basically click through and we say, okay, the Lojack raises, and then we go down that way. and then the next person folds. There's other ways of doing this. The next person folds, and the next person folds, and the small blind is going to fold, and the big blind's going to call. And that's going to be the line we're looking at. So we click on that, and then we hit OK. Did that work? Feels like that didn't totally work. And we're going to go any. This might not be as, oh. All right, so instead of the search, we'll do that, right? This double arrow to the right. And, you know, I'm still learning the software. We're going to go under the gun versus big blind. Preflop raiser is the Lojack, and preflop caller is the big blind. We click there. And, you know, you see here it says R2.5 FFFFC flop, right? Because that's the action. There's a raise to 2.5, then 4 folds, then a call, and then we see a flop. And you can select different types of flops. You can say, I only want to look at rainbow, or I only want to look at paired boards or card. You know, you hit filter, you hit predefined. But we're just going to look at random flops. And the idea here is to kind of get a baseline of like, where am I at in poker speak, right? Like, how close am I to having an idea of how I want to be playing this spot? Because then at the end of the study session, I can get a little bit more of an idea like, okay, what have I learned? Have I improved? Is this a useful usage of time? Maybe, maybe not. I think it will at least be useful, but maybe there's more efficient ways. But we're going to do this. Okay, so this is actually giving me the big blind spot, right? I'm going to look at this board and think, okay, that's a super good board for the out of position, for the in position player, rather. The raiser, they're going to have all the pocket aces, pocket tens, pocket jacks, king, queen suited and offsuit. It's going to be a pretty big portion of their range. Out of position is going to have 3-bet a lot of pocket aces, some king, queen, ace, king, right? So we're definitely just going to be checking pretty much range here, I would imagine. And you can see down there it says, first of all, you know, this yellow bar basically means, yeah, you're supposed to check this hand all the time. You're supposed to check your range 99.99% of the time. That's pretty high. And then there's some other stuff. Okay, so they bet. And we can see that they're supposed to bet most of their range here, which makes a lot of sense. They are supposed to use a small sizing, not a large sizing. I imagine we can raise or call this. It's probably going to mix. Trying to think. Probably fine either way, right? So we can choose one or the other, and we can say, okay, we rolled a 79 here. This is this like die, which is like a random die, right? And you can say, okay, if it's the high number, I'll do something. If I think like 20% of the time I would raise, well, it's not in the top 20, then I'll just call. If I think 50% of the time I'm going to raise, then I will, then I'll say the 79 means raise, right? It's a randomizer, and you can use that or you can ignore it. It's going to accept either solution as long as either one's correct. So we'll hit raise and see what happens. And it says, oh, you're mostly supposed to call. So I was kind of wrong here, right? But I wasn't really very wrong. This is weird. Why does it? And then they're supposed to fold ace king. All right, so my mind's already blown, right? If we go here to big blind, we look at that, and it says, with this hand, we're supposed to call 91% and raise 8%, and some decimals. I'm going to shave off the decimals. So basically, we're not supposed to raise this hand very much at all, right? With our range, we're supposed to do a lot of folding, not a lot of raising, 16% raising, 37% calling, right? So that's with all the hands that we can get to this spot. And then the big blind is supposed to bet fold ace king, which is top pair, top kicker, and a gut shot. So I'm, yeah, wow. Like, that feels like the sort of thing that you might do exploitatively against someone you think is like really nitty, right? Is really tight and not aggressive. But to look at this, I find that surprising already. I don't find it surprising that we're mostly supposed to call ace queen. And I guess the merit of raising it occasionally is you can actually get a better hand to fold, which means you're probably not getting any value, right? So yeah, anyway, I was, this is fine. It's going to basically mark this as correct because it doesn't use the randomizer. It says, well, if you can raise this sum, then raising's fine, right? And in real life, we would want to consider is this a spot where I want to raise more or less, right? This raise is good partially because they can fold a better hand, which is super weird. Do I believe anybody's actually folding a better hand in this spot? I mean, maybe somebody, but not a lot of people, right? Most people are calling their ace king for sure. So we go to the next hand, and we can hit replay hand, right? We'll use this feature just to show it. We hit replay hand. They still have ace king. We know that. We're going to check because we know we're supposed to check. We're going to wait for them to act. They're probably going to bet. Yeah. We rolled a 17, so that's passive. So we'll just call this spot this time, right? Now we get a turn card, and we have to decide what do we want to do on this turn card. I wouldn't be surprised if on this spade we're supposed to lead out a fair amount. You know, we want to think about whose range does this benefit? Well, I checked, they bet, and I called. So they can bet some flush draws for sure. But how many flush draws do they have? The ace, the queen, and the 10 of spades are all accounted for. The 6 as well, right? So they've got like king jack of spades, king 9, 8, 7 at some frequency. Then they've got like jack 9, 9, 8, 8, 7. That's 7 combos of flushes. I've got a lot of king X of spades, a lot of queen X of spades, right? Because in the big blind, I'm going to do a lot of calling. So I actually think we can lead this a fair amount. I don't think this is a hand we really want to be leading, so I'm going to check. It shows pure check for my hand. Not pure check, but 97%. It looks like there's actually not that much leading going on if we look at it. Only about 8% of range. So a portion that maybe you want to incorporate that, but I probably overestimated it. All right, so here, can I bet for value now? I don't know. Maybe use this block sizing like 2.28, maybe 4.5. I think either of those seem reasonable. I think I can get value from a weaker ace X hand. Having the queen of spades, I think, helps me bet for value because it blocks like some slow plays that they could have. The computer is going to check back some flushes, right? A human is probably going to bet those flushes all the time. So let's go ahead and put a value bet in. I think we can go half pot, but maybe it's this small one, and we'll see. Yeah, it doesn't like this, so it doesn't even say an error. Because this, if you look at the EV, it's like very close. It's basically negligible. But yeah, we're mostly supposed to use the block sizing if we bet, but predominantly we're checking, right? So far, you know, this is one hand, right? Let's go a little faster with future hands. But overall, I feel like I have a decent idea of this spot, but I'm probably overvaluing some hands. So let's move on. Now it might give me a Lojack spot. Okay, so I have a gut shot. On this disconnected board, I don't think I'm going to be leading almost at all. I check it. We can see, you know, both bars are yellow. The top bar is my hand. The bottom bar is my range, right? So against this bet size, I don't think I should be folding. I think I should probably be continuing all my gut shots, which are basically 3-4 suited, 3-5 suited, and 4-5 suited. I think I can check raise some of them, mostly with a backdoor flush draw, because then it's easier to barrel, but that might be a little bit of a human thing. I wouldn't be surprised if this is mixing call and raise. Slight chances to fold Neapolitan with a little bit of folds, but probably calls and raises. Yeah, so it's actually a lot of raising, right? A lot of raising there. And I think now it's just going to be a check fold. I don't have very much equity. You know, I basically have a gut shot. They overbet. This overbet makes sense when these boards are disconnected and a brick comes, which is mostly like it's usually a brick if it's disconnected, right? That's kind of the idea. These overbets are going to be very common. I'm clearly just going to fold this hand. And they had king queen. So I think this is an interesting hand for them to barrel as they pick up the gut shot. They still have the 2 overcards. And it's just hard for me. Like, I basically need a jack to continue, I think, right? We're not going to dig in too deeply to the individual hands yet. I wanted to do about 5 or 10 minutes of this sort of thing. So let's go like maybe we'll say 10 hands, something like that. Okay, pocket fives. I don't think I'm going to lead this board at all. I think they're going to bet very frequently, maybe range, close to range. No, they're doing a lot of checking still. I think I'm just pure folding this. Because I'm losing to an ace, I'm losing to a 7, I'm losing to a bunch of pocket pairs, and it's just going to be very difficult to navigate future streets. It turns out, no, I'm supposed to call this a fair amount, but folding it's also fine. So most people are probably going to be betting too often, which makes folding worse, I think, right? We're going to be folding too much equity. So I think that's a thing to think about exploitatively. If we think that, you know, they're not doing what they're supposed to do, then we want to think, how does that shift how we want to alter, you know, how we're approaching the situation. All right. Let me just verify. Yeah, the title's good. Okay. Good. So king 8 on this kind of board, a lot of 9x suited in my range, actually, not a lot of 9x offsuit. they're going to have more 9x. So I think I'm going to have some checks here, but I think I can probably get away with a bet. I do have a double backdoor, so I'm going to choose the smaller sizing. It's possible that I bet less frequently and use the larger sizings, but we'll go the smaller sizing. Looks like this hand and my range overall are like, yeah, you can use a small sizing, you can check some, you can bet big sum, big like half pot. So I did pick up equity, but this is probably one of the less good cards to pick up equity on. It is an overcard, which I guess that hits some of my continuing, my C betting range, but I think it hits a lot of their straight draws as well, like Jack 10, 10-8, both made something. I don't think this is a spot where I want to be using a lot of overbets. Certainly not with this hand. If it was like a Jack of Hearts, then I pick up 2 draws, I think I would bet it. And it looks like the solver's like, no. So it doesn't count this as an error, but it clearly wants me to bet this hand. And I guess, now I get a 7 to fold, smaller pocket pairs to fold. And here I think I can bet for value. What sizing? This small sizing, I feel like we're not supposed to use very much, but I'm not sure how much value I can get from anything else. So I almost feel like I should use the small sizing, but just it's so uncommon that we're meant to use the small sizing. I'm going to go mid size, and mostly we actually want to check this back because it's just hard to get value from, it looks like. And they put a raise in. I think I can fold this. I don't have a spade blocker. I'm blocking 10-8, yeah, but I'm not blocking any like 9-8 suited, or 9-8 off actually is worth blocking. But I think this does not make one of my best bluff catchers. A hand like King 10 with a 10 of spades would be significantly better, I believe. And they flopped trips and backdoor to flush. Okay, cool. It's one thing I really like about training this way is, it's not my money. So, you make a mistake, whatever happens, you just learn from it. And what I really like is that when I learn that way, then that kind of reinforces the idea of when I'm playing to think that way, right? So you think that way when you're doing the study and training, and then you can approach it that way when you're doing the actual playing sessions. Just kind of reinforces that thought process. Okay, so big blind, out of position with the jacking off, 9-4-5. This is like semi-connected. It's more connected for my range. I'm going to have, but I'm not going to have a bunch of offsuit combos that hit this. I'm not going to have too many 2-pair combos either, really. I'm going to have more sets, so a little bit more nuttiness, but I think they're going to bet pretty frequently. Very dynamic board. I think I'm going to peel against a third pot bet. Maybe occasionally you can check raise here, but I think you probably want a backdoor flush draw to go with it to check raise. So we're just going to fold there. And that's, yeah, you basically just want to fold. And it looks like they're actually doing a lot of checking, and they're using large bet sizes. So that's something to keep our eye on as we proceed. All right, we'll go to the next hand. And yeah, maybe we're doing this a little longer than I had intended. On this kind of board, check raising with our 6-9 of spades, nice. Against this size, I don't think we're meant to check raise that often. Probably like combo draws are what we want to check raise, along with like pocket fours, maybe ace 4 suited, but I could even see some 2 pairs just calling. So I'm going to call, and it looks like that is largely correct. And on the turn, there's a second flush draw. If they go ahead for an overbet here, I think I just have to fold? I think I just have to fold against the overbet, right? I mean, I'm getting very poor odds. I don't think I can convincingly represent that much. I don't have anything like a combo draw. These kind of weak flush draws, I think we just fold. And yeah, and they get to win with Queen Jack, right? Because their range was so strong. They had so much pocket aces, pocket kings, ace king in their range that my hands, I just can't fight that really very effectively, right? I need really high equity bluffs, and because, well, to go with like 3 combos of really nutted hands. Okay, one more. Maybe we'll just do one more and then wrap it there. Okay, pocket 6 is in position on this very dynamic board. Now, with a 9 on board, pocket 8s are probably going to do a lot of checking. With a 7 on board, pocket 6s probably check a lot. So this is a very natural hand to check. When an overcard comes, I can then possibly turn my hand into a bluff and get like a 7x to fold type deal. I don't think this is a board that I'm going to be betting at a high frequency on. I don't hit it that much with my like offsuit overcard range. So we're just going to check back, and it looks like I'm actually supposed to check close to range there. The interesting thing is that they're also supposed to check a ton, and then now they bet. You know, I have a gut shot. Yes, the odds aren't very good. It's the butt shot, right? The bottom end of the gut shot, the idiot end, as they once called it. And I think we can just fold this hand. The showdown value of the pair is quite minor, and there's just going to be tons of bad river cards. And it looks like this is actually a pure call. So sometimes that combination of showdown value and like get there value, they're supposed to play correctly on future streets. So this is the first clear mistake, and we can look at, you know, the total EV loss. It shows here minus 0.28, right? So that's about a third of a blind, or a quarter of a blind, somewhere in there, 2/7 of a blind. And we can see the average EV loss was 4/100 of a blind. So that would be like 4 big blinds per 100, which is significant, right? That's like, there's still a lot of room for improvement, but it's also not that bad. And yeah, I think let's progress to actually studying the ranges, and then we'll circle back. And this isn't like a big sample size of like, oh, let's compare the results. That's not really what we're going to do. We're going to look at kind of like the feel, right? We're going to look at the feeling of these different things. So, all right. We're going to go in here, library, 6 max cache, and just view. We're just going to go to view, and we're going to start with the Lojack range now, right? This is the basis of why the Sims do what they do. And I'm going to take some notes here, and I think I'm going to do that off screen, and I'll just talk about what my notes are. So the first thing we want to look at is, obviously, it's a raise or fold strategy, right? We're raising 17.98%. So we're going to call it Lojack RFI 18%, right? And you can hit copy here, and then you can go somewhere else and hit like Control V or whatever. That didn't work. Didn't that work? This is important. When you want to copy a range, you have to make it show only the range you want. So this would be the folding range. That's not what we want. We click fold, we click, you know, bet 250. This is the range. Now we hit copy, and then I go to my document, and I go paste. Oh, it does every single combo? Wow. All right. So here's what happens. I'll just show you what happens when you paste it. It does this, which is like ridiculous looking and not very helpful. So if you have something like a solver open, that's actually very useful, because you can just like paste it directly into PO solver, probably Munker solver as well, and whatever else. And I assume the other simple poker products, and then it will just use that range. However, it doesn't really work that well here, so we'll scratch that. Maybe I'll cut this out of the YouTube video. Sorry, YouTube, if I didn't cut it out of the YouTube video. I probably won't. So let's look at the range and try and verbalize it, right? We've got pocket sevens plus, we've got ace 3 suited plus, right? We've got ace 10 offsuit plus, king 8 suited plus, king jack offsuit plus, queen 9 suited plus, I'll stop saying plus, jack 10 suited. And those are the only hands that we play pure, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but that looks like that's our whole range in terms of pure. And then mix hands like, I mean, technically it's 2s through 6s, but obviously it's a lot more 6s, right? It's ace 2 suited, king 5 suited to king 7 suited, king 10 offsuit, queen 10 suited, queen 10 off plus, right? Which is weird. And you know, a hand like queen 10 off, when I look at Sims that have a cold call in the cutoff, they don't play queen 10 off. And this is probably because queen 10 off blocks a lot of 3-bet hands, but it doesn't do very well when called. So that's a, you know, that's just a thing to keep in mind. So jack 9 suited, 10-8 suited plus, you know, 9-8 suited, 8-7 suited, down through 5-4 suited. Okay, so we can look at this though also and think like, how do we want to play, right? Which hands do we actually want to mix in? And I'm going to say ace 2 suited, king 10 off, queen jack off, king 7 suited, jack 9 suited, 10-9 suited for sure, and then like 7-6 suited, 6-5 suited, pocket 6s, 5s, and maybe 5-4 suited. And basically those hands, right, like the ones that are more than half or roughly half, we can mix those in half the time, or have them be hands where we're like, okay, people behind us fold a lot, let's use those hands, right? Or, you know, the big blind's a player we really want to play against, so we're going to raise a little bit more hands in the Lojack. And having a kind of like verbal understanding of these are the hands I'm playing, spending some time on the range. I think some time on the range, yeah, it sounds like a song. Yeah, so if we're sitting here at home with the ranges and we get used to like really visualizing them and understanding them, and like if I close my eyes and I think like, okay, it's actually pocket 7s plus ace 3 suited plus ace 10 off plus king 8 suited plus king jack off plus queen 9 suited, jack 10 suited, and that was actually it. And then most of 10-9 suited, 6s, 5s, I think king 10 off and queen jack off, ace deuce suited, king 7 suited, jack 9 suited was like half of that. These are the kind of halves, right? And I look back at it and I'm like, yeah, okay. Oh, and then the suited connectors. I left out the suited connectors. But being able to kind of close your eyes and visualize it, like you're not necessarily going to think through every single hand while you're playing. Maybe live you are, right? Maybe live, although people will have different ranges. But being able to really kind of interact with it, when you see the board, then you can think of all these combos, right? Think of, what do I mostly have? And I think that's very helpful, right? And I mean, you can also just think like, okay, there's no offsuit combos with a 9 in them. So if there's a 9, we're just not going to hit that card that much. Whereas if there's a king, well, there's a lot of combos with a king, or tons with an ace, right? Anyway, let's progress. So we're going to say that the Lojack raises, and then we're not going to really pay attention to any of the positions behind them. So we're just going to literally skip ahead and go to small blind fold. And you see that the green here says that these are all defaulting to fold. So if you just go ahead and click that, it's going to have all those players fold. And I hit myself in the face. What the heck? So this is the folding range in the big blind. And I think this is an interesting place to start. I didn't necessarily mean to do this, but if you start with the folding range, then everything else is stuff you call. And this is way more folding than I was thinking. And so this is part of where I got in a little bit of trouble on the flop analysis, is I've mostly been studying big blind ranges against a 2 1/4 open raise. And against that, you're supposed to play, I think, every king X. I haven't looked at it recently, but you're definitely playing a lot of these suited queens, 5 deuce suited, 6 deuce suited, 7-3 suited, stuff like that. Maybe not 7-3 suited, but like 5 deuce suited and 4 deuce suited are like pure plays. Here you can play them a little bit, but a bunch of these hands like jack 7 suited, you're just definitely playing if they only raise to 2 1/4 blinds, but here it's 2 1/2 blinds. So this big blind range is actually a little tighter than I was thinking. And if we look at the offsuit hands, they actually kind of mirror the other players' offsuit hands, right? They're all broadways. Everything else is just pure folds, right? These are all pure folds. And that means, you can continue any of your broadways, but you want to fold some of your weaker ones, jack 10, queen 10, king 10, queen jack. And these suited queen jack, there's this diagonal right here where you can look at them and be like, oh, that's the 3 gappers. Yeah, you don't defend a bunch of 3 gappers, right? Whereas 2 gappers, you can defend 2 gappers all around, way down to 9-6. And then all the other ones, like, you can mix, right? You can play some of them. But so, this is, if we go to big blind call range, and the reason I'm looking at this instead of just the call is because I think we want to think of it in terms of continue range, and then from there we can think, what hands are we 3-betting, right? So big blind call range is going to be like basically no 3 gappers, offsuit combos, similar to Lojack RFI, basically. That's kind of a way of like putting in words, right? All ace X suited, all pairs, and mix two gappers, all one gappers, except 4-2 suited. And so this isn't perfect. This isn't that's not an actual exactly the range, right? But that's the gist of it. And so now we're going to switch from that to actually specifically the calling range, right? You can throw in the raising range here too and see, okay, queens plus, it's like flatting tens and jacks a lot, which I think a lot of players don't do as much, right? I think a lot of players 3-bet those pretty frequently, but against the Lojack, a 2.5x raise, if they're playing theoretically correct, like, yeah, 3-betting them maybe isn't that great, unless you have some post-flop benefits that you're gonna get, right? All these suited aces you can mix in. Ace king off is the only offsuit hand that's really 3-betting. And then some of these suited connectors a little bit because they play very well when they get called, right? And suited broadways also are doing this mixing. So if we go and we switch it to just the calling range, right? And we just look at this, you know, just kind of soak it in. Like the suited broadways are partials, right? And the off-suited broadways are also partials, except for like ace queen, king queen. Those are basically pure ace jack almost. And then the other hands that we're going to have at really high frequency are like these pocket pairs, nines through deuces. That's going to be a large portion of the range. And you can actually look over here. It shows combos, 262 combos. And it shows overpair, 1.2%. You know, wait, overpair? What does that even mean? What does that mean? There's no board. And I guess that should be a pair? Oh, this is of the entire range? I don't understand what this percentage is, but oh, yeah, I'm confused. Shows 15.4 combos. I don't understand what this is doing right now. Perhaps somebody, if anybody knows. Okay, so there. Oh, I see. That's how you're playing those, right? So pair, overpair just means pair in this case. Ace high is this, king high. So, you know, that's how we're playing with different parts of our range. We're actually folding most of the things that aren't an ace, a king, or a pocket pair, right? The ones that we're playing are almost entirely suited and a little bit of those offsuit broadways. Yeah, so I'm not sure how helpful this is, but maybe at some point it'll be helpful. Go back and make sure that, yep, okay. Cool, so what do we got here? Let's proceed to the flop. Right, so we have that call, and then we can just put in a flop, right? Like 10, 9, 8, whatever. And that, I imagine there's going to be a lot of leading and not a lot of betting for the in position player. There's no leading, and we'll just check this hypothesis. There is not a lot of bet. Wait, oh, oops, that's the wrong thing. We're going to go with the check, and it looks like, yeah, there is a lot of betting. So I had that backwards. Fine, cool. But the point is, we actually want to go here, I think, and we want to look at. I don't want to look at this board. Okay, so this is also about learning. Ah, yes, here there are. We can click there, and I think that symbol just shows us a lot of flops, right? So instead of just looking at this one flop, we will see, and it takes a while to load because there's so much information. And what this will do is it will show, yeah, here's like all the boards, right? If you scroll down, it's just not all the boards. Oh, then there's another page, right? There's 18 pages of boards. So you can filter, you can do things. If I sort these, is this just sorting these boards? No, this is sorting all the boards now, and then it shows different things, right? So check percentages. Overall, big blind is checking 92%, right? So that's not a lot of donking. You know, all of these boards are going to be 100% check. So that's not necessarily going to be super interesting. What we'd rather see is which ones aren't checking, right? Which ones have a high bet percentage. And it's these small connected boards, right? So like 765, 764, yada, yada, yada. All these cards are like in the 5 through, you know, the 8 through 3 range connected, right? So we can say like, what were we going to look at? First, we were going to look at which boards favor which player. Okay, so does this show like equity? Right, that's kind of what I want to look at, and I'm not sure it does. But we can look at kind of the betting tendencies and sort of interpret things. So big blind donks on boards with 3 cards between 8 and 3. It looks like, right? The deuce isn't that helpful for the big blind because they fold a lot of deuce X, a lot of suited deuce X, I would imagine. You know, it's still, they are still donking, right? But less with the lower cards. And we'll look at the ones that are like above 80%. Every one of these is a straight board, right? So we'll say mostly straight boards. So in other words, boards where one player can flop a straight, and mostly it's the big blind who can flop a straight here, right? On these, I'd say it's entirely the big blind who can flop a straight. In fact, are any of those the contrary of that? 7-6-5 out of position has a little bit of 9-8 suited, but they're mostly folding 9-8 suited. If they play a lot of 9-8 suited, I bet this plays differently, right? And that's one of the things, like whenever we're studying sims, we always need to remember, like, what are the limitations of the tools we're using to study, and how might they be biased, right? They may be biased towards 9-8 suited being folded, whereas some players are raising it 100%. Some players are doing 50%. So if you think someone's doing 100%, then you probably want to play a little differently on the 7-6-5 board. Whereas on the 7-5-4 board, that's not going to have as big of an impact. All right, we keep going down. Let's see, like at the bottom of this, see like some 8-8 deuce. You know, there's some donking, but this, once you get down here and like less than half the time, I think these, it's not as important. And you know, we can actually click through on one and be like, okay, what's actually getting donked, right? So let's take a look at that. Here's one where it's a fairly small amount of donking. We'll click there, and it'll just open up another tab, and it'll show us that. And it takes a moment because it's got to load the sims. I'm happy that it takes a moment because I don't want people to be able to use the tool as real-time assistance, right? You want people to have to use this as a study tool. As a study tool, it's great. Anything that's used as real-time assistance is, you know, it's cheating, depending on the rules of the site, I guess. But, you know, don't do it. Okay, there's my PSA. So 9-8-6, what are we donking? And if you look at this, it's like, I don't know, like whatever. Basically, we're not donking ace king or ace queen. It looks like ace deuce we're mostly not donking, although if we hover that, I bet, yeah, with hearts and diamonds, we're doing it some. You know, mostly like some pairs and stuff. And this looks like a very, very, very difficult strategy to implement. And also, it probably doesn't make that big a difference compared to just if you checked range, right? Because it's this mix of hands that is not, it's not like you're doing these hands and not these hands. It's like you're kind of 50-50ing a lot of hands, but like some of them are 60-40 and some of them are 40-60. And then occasionally you get like a 90-10, right? So I would look at this and argue, maybe just never donk a board like this. But let's go back and look at one where you're supposed to donk a lot. So one of these maybe in the 70-80% region, right? 8-6-5 or something. This, we're supposed to donk like 70-some%, I think. 80%. And here you can donk almost everything. And in that case, I'd say like, well, there's probably some value to doing that. What size is it using? It looks like third pot, right? 1.8 times 3 would be 5.4, 5.46. So it's like 0.33 of pot or something like that. So yeah, if you look at this, it's like, well, maybe you just donk everything on this board. And maybe you just like occasionally just like give up with a hand like king, queen. Let's see what happens when you check. Like they're probably supposed to check a ton. And if we look at that, and they're only supposed to check half the time. So if we think our opponents are just like auto c-betting, we can probably exploit that, right? But we have to understand, like, if we don't have a donking range, maybe they're supposed to check even more. I don't know. If we do have a donking range and then they don't, and then they still check a lot, maybe that's a potential exploit, right? So in all these spots, I'm trying to see like what what does the solver want us to do, but also like what do we want to do when somebody's deviating from, you know, optimal, whatever. None of those words are really that important. Okay, so they're like not very precise, right? Optimal, like game theory optimal isn't really optimal per se, but whatever. So they're supposed to bet hands like king 10 off, right? Just like, unless it has a club, in which case they check it a little. Like this strategy of theirs actually looks kind of hard. They're mostly supposed to bet eights. But let's see what happens when they do bet. If they bet this smaller sizing, which I think people are going to lean towards betting less frequently and using the larger sizing. But yeah, we basically just get to fold a bunch of these overcards. We're still supposed to call with some king queen, like that's hard to do. Ace jack, yada yada yada. These ace three, you know, ace and an undercard gets to just basically fold. Except if we had it with a backdoor flush draw, now we're supposed to check raise. You know, if we look at this, like, wow, 16% raising, even when we had this like weaker checking range, because we donked probably a stronger portion of our range. So basically, in terms of donks, I guess we can go back here and say like these kind of boards, you know, we didn't learn a lot in terms of which hands, because it's a very kind of amorphous sort of thing. So I would say mostly straight boards, mix all hands, but mostly check with like true crap, basically. Like if there's just like nothing, and check raise some like weak backdoor flush draw type stuff. So, you know, this is a thing where it's like maybe you have to dig in a lot deeper to like really get where you want to go with it. Let's see if we can throw in the check, and then I think we can look at this line on different boards, right? So this should give us a bunch of different boards to examine what do we want to do in terms of c betting. And we'll say Lojack c bets. What's the overall percentage? There's supposed to be an overall percentage. It's not showing it. Probably because there's the interference of like having some donks from the out of position player. Oh no, this is the average. What am I talking about? C-bets about 62% of the time. Mostly third pot. And a little half and 3/4. So first thing to do is like look at, oh wow, look at that board. Let's start with like what ones really want to use the big bet sizing. And look at this, on a deuce 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 board, you just like, you basically can pot it, right? You like 3/4 pot it with range, because out of position isn't even supposed to have a lot of quads, right, with the deuce x suited, and in position just has that huge like big pair advantage. And then also your high cards like your ace high and stuff have a lot of equity, because you know, deuce is full of ace king, and you can hit the better overcards, right, if you both bowed up or whatever. So small trip boards want to use big. All these ones, like, what do they have in common? There's like some 2 high card, right, 2 Broadway cards. Queen 5-9 is a bit surprising, but that's kind of mixing. You know, there's 2 different categories. There's the one that's like betting large very frequently and rarely checking, and then there's the ones that like mix in a decent amount of checking. And these kind of Queen X boards seems like they mix in a fair amount of the checking. Yeah, like Queen 8, Queen 9. These ones I find a little bit surprising. There's like a lot of Queen high boards, it looks like. You know, this isn't thoroughly scientific. We see a lot of Ace King boards, right? So let's say Lojack uses 3/4 sizing on a lot of Ace King X boards, as well as Queen high boards that are semi-connected, right? Or fairly connected, right? That are yeah, those are pretty connected. So that's you know, an observation, basically, like kind of a heuristic that we can use some of those. And you know, in order to understand some of these, like we really do have to like click through. And this, I mean, you can spend a lot of time doing some of these things. And that's why, you know, ultimately when I get like a list of heuristics and stuff, like it'll probably be very valuable. And you know, you can probably sell that for a lot of money in terms of like having really effective like guidelines, right? Ways to go about it. Now we look at this and we can see some of the things I was saying earlier, like the 8s and 7s are going to check a lot with a 9 on board, the jacks and 10s as well, and the 6s to some extent, you know, and the 4s and 3s are below the 5s. This board being so connected, you don't really have a bunch of cards that are like a queen 9 deuce, like pocket 3 is often bet a lot because they can deny a lot more equity. If we look at all of these like suited hands, like they're not really, I mean, yeah, you bet more often with the hearts, but like you basically are just checking some and betting some. And maybe when you're supposed to mostly use this large sizing and then check, like maybe you just bet half pot all the time, just like with range. I don't know. These big pairs are clearly going for like big value, right? Ace queen a lot, but also checking some. Ace king is mostly betting, but then ace king suited does a good amount of checking when it doesn't have a backdoor. If we look at the other ones, the ones that are checking more don't have backdoors. But yeah, I mean, you get spots like this where the solver just does so much mixing. And really, I think mostly what we have to end up doing is just thinking about like what were our ranges and how do they intersect with this board, right? Where like here, there was a good amount of queen X suited, but a lot of queen X suited folded, right? Like queen 7 suited, I think, was folding or something. So because of that, these queen X boards favor in position because in position is going to have a big top pair advantage. Whereas some of the lower boards, they don't have that top pair advantage because they don't have a bunch of, you know, queen X. I mean, here even queen jack off is in each player's range, but yeah, the over pairs figure less. No, that's not really true. Well, the higher the top card, the more over pairs. I don't know. I'm a little looking for some sense in this, but it doesn't matter. We will proceed, and I think I'm going to take a moment and have a few almonds because I need some protein. So, a little food break. All right, let's look at the boards where we're just betting range as the Lojack. Almonds are not the best streaming snack. They're a great poker snack, but not great for streaming. Okay, so which boards does Lojack bet range for small size? And I spelled size wrong. That's fine. You can't see it. I didn't have to tell you. So high double paired boards, right? Or high paired boards. King, king, queen, queen, ace, ace. Jack, jack, ace, ace. Yeah, so was there a jack, jack? There was, right? Queen, jack, jack. So high paired boards, or rather boards with a high pair, like ace, ace, king, king, queen, queen, jack, jack. And that's because I think there's, oh, we should have written down how many combos are in each range, right? But out of position, I believe, will have more combos in their range than in position. And as a result, even if both players have like trips top kicker, in position will have a larger concentration of them if they have those at full frequency. Like king, jack, jack, right? Ace, jack offsuit is at full frequency in both ranges, although actually it probably 3-bets a little for out of position, but not much. So if those, in this case, you know, ace, jack of whatever is going to be 8 combinations, right? On king, jack, jack. Those 8 combinations are going to be a smaller percentage of out of positions range because they have a bigger range. They have more pure combos, right? 8 divided by a larger denominator is just a smaller number. So if we keep scrolling down, like all of these look like those boards, right? So yeah, those you could just bet range on these. You know, king 9-4 we're starting to see. I think this is rainbow when it's like that. We have like 9-4 rainbow, ace king jack. Yeah, so we're starting to get some like 3 high card boards. Ace jack 10, so 3 high card boards. The ones like ace ace deuce, right? So we didn't need a high kicker. We just need the high pair or 3 high cards. Seems like these are all just like you can round up to range. 90% you can just bet range. 3 high card boards, even ace queen X, probably a lot of ace king X. And it's interesting because a lot of these I would have thought like we want to be betting the larger sizing a fair amount, but it's just like, no, just bet range for this small sizing. So that's a little bit surprising, right? But overall that goes back to the fact that like, yeah, 40% of the time we're using the small sizing, only 12% of the time we're using the larger sizings. So we could probably say like, which boards were we using the large sizing? Ace X board or ace king boards and queen high. So we can be like, on those, we're gonna kind of mix some large bets and some checks. And then on these types of boards, we're going to basically just bet range. And eventually we're gonna get into some boards like king, queen 10, we don't bet as much. You know, and there's so many boards, so it's not like we're gonna like go through all the boards, right? Sometimes it's easier if you have like some sort of a subset, and we can go to subsets, right? Where are we at? We're at 56 minutes. All right, so fun. We can look at monotone boards, and actually, you know what? These are the averages for everything, right? So the averages stays the same. Yeah, okay. So here's what we're gonna do. Maybe I'll pull up a notepad doc here, basically. All right, so we're gonna make some notes this way. All right, Lojack RFI versus big blind call. When checked to Lojack checks back 37%. A typo. 37%. Bets. B33. We're gonna say that. 40%. B50. That means like 50% of pot. 11%. B75. Like, what was it? 11% also? 12%? 12%. All right, so that's the overall, right? Now we're gonna move that aside. We're gonna go to just monotone. So on monotone boards, right. Overall, and then we'll say on monotone boards, Lojack checks back 45%. So we check more if the board is monotone, right? So if you're not sure if it's close, then that can lead you that way. Bet 33, 53%. Bet larger, I'm gonna say negligible. So basically on negligible, I'm gonna try and spell. Basically on monotone boards, we're just only using the small size. That's a heuristic. That's useful. Fitting almonds across the desk is not. Okay, so that's a good heuristic, right? I'm gonna keep that one. Now let's go to two-toned, only two-toned. Two-tone boards play pretty close to the average. Really close? Why can't I type anymore? Okay. And we'll just do this. We'll say 42, 32, 12, 14. Because that is basically those 4 bet sizes, right? 0, 33, 50, 75. And then we will go rainbow, and we'll switch to that. Rainbow. All right, so rainbow is even more. So rainbow is 30, 48, 11, 10, something like that. 49, whatever. So if we look at this, we can basically say monotone boards only use the smaller bet sizing. Rainbow bet the most frequently. Like outside of anything else, basically default to betting 33 with range is what I'm going to say, actually. And that might seem a little weird, but basically, unless you have some other thing that overrides that, that's what we're going to go with. So if we now go to, we'll go to just paired boards, right? So here we see paired boards is 26, 65, 5, 4. And what that tells me, they use the 3/4 sizing a lot on, what was it? Oh, range for small size on the paired boards, right? That's right. So the paired boards basically seem like, never use big sizing. And for exploitative reasons, you can always deviate, right? Lean towards betting range for 33, right? So, these are just all the paired boards, and we still have a bunch of different, pages. We can flip this. So we're looking at the ones we bet the least. So what are the exceptions? The exceptions look like a pair of deuces, right? If there's a pair of deuces, bet big. So lean towards betting range. So we're going to say never use big sizing unless deuce, basically. And specifically, that basically means when the pair is largely out of their range, when they're going to have very few combos of the trips, we can use the big sizing because our over pairs get so much value. And also with a low kicker, right? It looks like 10 deuce or less. Ace 3-3 is now actually doing a lot of checking. So yeah, basically pair of deuces, we can use large sizing. So that's a good exception, right? A good carve out there. And then we can go to like the trips boards, which we don't have to pay too much attention to. Basically, the small trips, we're going to bet big. And the big trips are like pure checks. Okay. Trips boards. Big trips are pure checks. Small boards, small trips, bet big. So basically, you bet bigger the smaller the trips, it looks like. Where these mid trips are kind of like mixing checks and small bet and medium bet. Or no, nobody's checking, right? Betting range. Did I say pure checks? Jeez. That is wrong. Don't pure check. Sorry about that. Our pure small bet range. So trip boards, okay, we're gonna redo this because I visually edited out the check column. Right? So it's always important to double and triple check your work. Bet range on trips boards, small on big trips, big on small trips. So that's kind of like backwards, right? But that's how it is. So yeah, the board comes trips, we're betting range. The board is paired, we're leaning towards betting range. We're only using the big sizing on the small cards, right? So small trips, small potential trips that someone could have, bet big. Bet range for small bet on the trips or high paired boards. Now let's go to unpaired boards. And unpaired boards, this is kind of pretty much just follows the normal thing. A little bit more checking. Unpaired boards, basically no real adjustments from like kind of the like wherever our defaults are. Yeah. I think I probably need to do more eating in order to, oh, just lurking at this point. Okay, you can use the lurk command, and I think it does a thing. Yeah, and it says you're lurking in the shadows. But welcome, always welcome to lurk. Thank you. You know, even questions are always appreciated, right? If you have questions, please ask them. But if you don't, that's fine. You know, you can always just hang out. So basically, I'm doing work that I would be doing on my own anyway, but I figure, like, why not do it on stream? And over time, over the next 30 days, maybe we'll get people coming in and studying together, and maybe not, and that's fine. Regardless, I think this is going to be very productive for me personally. So if you care to share in that, welcome. Okay, so unpaired boards, there's nothing really there yet. Let's go to disconnected. Oh, these are medium. Okay, jeez. All right, we'll just do disconnected. Disconnected, no big conclusions. Unpaired, disconnected, no big conclusions. And so basically when there's no conclusions, we default to like where we started, right? Which was, yeah, we check some, we bet small some, and we bet bigger a little, basically. And then we just kind of think about our hand, and we can think about, do we want to simplify? So if we sort by this, let's see if there's like a minimum checking. Yeah, okay. So if we look at this now, right, we can see king, queen, X. We can actually go, yeah, we can look like high. So unpaired, disconnected, high. Like we can look at each of these. I could make a spreadsheet of the averages. Definitely a better way to do this. So we're learning today, but we're also learning about how we want to be learning. So yeah. So high, disconnected, and unpaired. What does that mean? That means like 2 high cards and a low card, probably. There is, overall, there's a lot of checking. I mean, not a lot of checking. There's like a normal amount. Nothing changes overall, but like, we can't sort by flop, right? Do we have any of these that are checking a lot? That are king queen? Yeah, like king 4 queen. Like, why is that still checking a fair amount? But then that's using some big sizings. So these all are like, those are kind of tough, right? And I don't know, how do we want to approach those? I don't have anything yet. We did paired on, so let's go back and all right, where do we want to go from here? We could try and apply things already. We've got, what are some of our conclusions that we've come up with? Okay. So, Lojack, let's see. Lojack RFI, there's big blind call, and flop check. Lojack checks some, bets 33 some, that's bigger some a little. Yeah, basically that kind of like averages out probably to like bet 33 range, right? I'm gonna say default to bet 33 with range. That's just gonna be the default. And then two-tone boards, monotone boards, okay. Monotone boards that check back more, and never use large sizing. Right? We're gonna start with that. We're gonna say rainbow boards are bet the most frequently. Default to range bet 33, right? Paired boards, range bet small unless pair is deuce deuce, then bet big. Trip boards, not that important. We don't get a lot of them. They're very rare, but that range small on high boards, large on small boards, medium on medium, really. unpaired, disconnected. We didn't really get anything there, right? So this is basically, we're going to usually bet 33 with range. On a monotone board, we're going to do more checking. Two-tone boards, sort of like fair amount of checking. I don't know, somewhere in the middle. Rainbow boards are bet the most frequently. We're going to default to range betting 33. And then paired boards, we bet basically range for small on big ones. And then on the deuce, okay. And then trip boards, bet range small on high boards, large on small boards. And I think there was maybe one more thing that we can add to that. Boards with a high pair, bet range for small pair. Yeah, we already said that, right? 3 high cards. 3 high card boards. Yeah. We bet range for small size. That's not really an additional thing, right? Okay, so what have we gotten out of this so far? Basically that. Let's look at what some of these other things do. This is a lot. That's something to dig into later, maybe. I don't think that's where we are right now. Is there any particular type of board that's like maybe special that I didn't include? I don't know. I think we can move on. And now let's say that there is a bet, right? So we're going to look at the small bet because on most boards, that's going to be the primary thing. And we're going to look at big blind's reaction to that. And we're pretty much just going to be talking about flop spots today. Although when we get back into the other thing, we'll, like the practice, we'll look at that. All right. So, call, what are we looking at? Okay. Let's first look at the boards that we get to fold a lot, right? Okay. Bring this up again, and let's say, yeah, these notepad notes are like terribly formatted, but usually it's like the easiest to just put it in pure text and then later format it better. Okay, so big blind facing c-bet, small c-bet. We'll call it that. Okay, we've got call 47%, fold 38%, raise 15%. Right? So that's a good amount of raising. It's a fair amount of folding. You get to fold a good amount of hands. But you have to continue pretty frequently, right? You have to continue 60% or 62% of your range, which is like, you know, between, it's basically 5/8 of your range, right? You want to continue that much. So we then can look at which kinds of boards have the most folding. Let's start with that. And, right, so ace, 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 queen. So basically we've got like boards with multiple aces and kings. So many Broadway, let's see, boards with mostly high cards, we get to fold a lot. And this is what you would call overfolding, right? We're not doing the minimum defense frequency. A brief detour into minimum defense frequency. This was a concept that, I mean, it still exists and it applies in a subset of situations. However, this was a misconception that when we were practicing GTO in like 2010, right? The idea was, okay, if the pot is 3 chips and you bet 1 chip, then you're risking 1 chip to win 3 chips. And thus, I need to continue at least 1 out of 4 times, right? Because you're basically getting 3-1. If your bluff succeeds 25% of the time, you're immediately printing money. So I need to continue at least 3 out of 4 times, right? I can only fold up to 20%, 25%, and then you'll be indifferent to bluffing. So that means I could only fold 25%, but here we see in this spot against this bet sizing, the solver wants to fold 38%. What's going on? Well, the point is that in position can check back and has equity, right? some random hand on the board, ace, ace, ace. Even if they have deuce 3, they can check it back and they still have equity. They can hit a 2 or a 3, right? Maybe they have king 4 and that's actually good sometimes. Maybe they have jack 10 and they have runner draw. The point is, we don't have to make a bluff. We don't have to make an opponent indifferent to bluffing, like where they aren't going to have a profitable c bet ever, because they don't need to be above 0 EV, right? Because the EV of checking is above 0. They need to be above the EV of checking. So the actual way of coming up with exactly how many hands you can fold is ends up being very complicated, except in some like river situations, perhaps. So what happens here is there are boards where we can fold a ton, right? And it's these high card boards, right? The boards that that in position really liked, right? Which was what was it? On high paired boards, range bet small, right? Basically. So they're just range betting small, and they're doing that because we have to fold, because we just have a lot of hands that are terrible on these boards that just aren't going to be able to realize our equity on future runouts, right? On future streets. So it's good to look at that and be like, yeah, okay, I get to fold a lot on these boards, so we don't have to be super stubborn, right? And we can click through to some of them, but that's probably beyond the scope of today. Instead, I want to look at what about boards that we don't fold much on, right? Oh, these small connected boards, we don't fold much. We fold less than the minimum defense frequency, right? We actually get to over defend again in that framework, which isn't really accurate. But small to mid connected boards, so we'll go here, small to mid connected boards, we fold rarely. And by that I mean, you know, less than 25%. Okay, so that's something useful, right? Now let's look at like, what do we raise a lot, right? Okay, so these small boards, mid-paired boards, it looks like so small boards, small connected boards, mid-paired boards, mid-connected boards. We check raise over 20%, right? So that's a good amount of check raising. And the thing is, when we check raise more, we actually can kind of fold more as well, because we're still putting kind of a gate on their aggression, right? It's like, well, you can't bet that much. If I'm going to check raise you, then all that equity you could have realized by checking back, you don't get to realize that if it's not a hand you can call a check raise with. And if it is, then maybe you're still losing value, because I've got a lot of value hands on these types of boards if I'm the big blind. All right, so then let's look at, we can scroll down a little bit more and kind of see, okay, queen queen deuce rather, some paired boards as well, wheel boards, some paired boards as well, some wheel boards, right, where like ace something suited is a, oh no, these are not wheel boards. No, those are paired also. Okay, scratch that. Let that be stricken from the record. Wheel boards should be decent for the preflop raiser, because they have, you know, all the ace X suited. That's not like ace deuce. All right. So yeah, these ones we're gonna check raise a lot. These still kind of feel like they fit the general premise. I already said mid paired boards. That didn't really add anything. We're gonna delete that. Okay. Let's now look at the hands that we raise the least, or the boards that we raise the least. Okay, so we've got some ace high wheel boards, right? Check raise the least on ace high wheel boards, which is weird because it's like, oh yeah, 4-5 suited, 3-5 suited. It's, you know, you've got a lot of good hands there, but maybe we let out a lot with them. So those, you know, queen jack, double Broadway boards, it looks like, some double Broadway boards. And oh, these are monotone. A lot of these are monotone. Okay. So we'll go monotone ace-high wheel boards, monotone double Broadway boards. In fact, let's now proceed to let's just look at monotone. Yeah, just monotone boards, right? All right, so check raise a lot less on monotone boards. And we'll see this, that like monotone boards actually end up getting played very passively. Neither player wants to put in that much action a lot of the time, right? On the flop at least. And I think this often goes to later streets. Like if we just keep going, like if we go to the most aggressive monotone boards, I imagine maybe there's some like sort of straight stuff going on, but no. I don't know, do they have a set advantage? It's hard to see really why these boards would get check raised that much more. Basically, they all have an ace in them. King, ace, yeah, so the monotone boards we check raise the most are ace high, some king high, right? And then, you know, we've got some of these like straightening boards, but that's getting to be less check raising. And also that's that kind of like straightening thing that we had before. Let's go to rainbow, and rainbow average is just slightly higher than the other average. Yeah, so basically rainbow and two-toned, we're not going to change too much. Let's look at the fold percentages. They seem pretty constant, right? It doesn't seem like that's changing that much. We fold a little less on monotone boards. That's probably because we just have a lot of flush draws, I would guess. We can now get rid of those, and let's look at paired boards. Paired boards are kind of normal, right? I'm not going to make any notes about things that don't look like they've really, like they're that different. Fold a lot on trip boards. Wow, 50%. So fold a lot on trips boards. 50% overall. So yeah, that kind of seems like it doesn't matter too much which board, like the mid trips, or maybe we continue more. The smaller trips, yeah, the smaller the trips are, the more we continue. So we'll see this a lot where we have higher fold percentages against the range bet. And that's because they're range betting because we have higher fold percentages, right? Because it's hard for us to defend against that bet size. That's why it wants to choose that bet size. So that is, let's see. What about, we could do, what else can we do? We could do like high rank, right? Okay, this looks pretty in line with everything else, so nothing really stands out there. Mid rank, again, pretty in line. And low rank, you know, we basically continue more on the low rank and with more raises. So I think we already got that idea overall. Here we are back in the trainer, and we're going to just kind of see whether any of these things were helpful so far, right? What I'm probably going to do is take a bunch of the heuristics and put them on flashcards and kind of drill them. But for now, let's just let's take a look here. All right, so this kind of board, I think we are going to have some leads, right? But not a ton. So we'll start with a check. Very few leads. It doesn't really fall into one of the specialized categories. Here, this type of board, I don't think we're going to have an exceptional number of raises. I think we can raise with this combo some. We can also call with it some, is my guess. We rolled a 1, so I'm going to say call. I don't think it's a pure raise. It's actually a pure call. Our raises, I do think will be, and when this card pairs, I don't think we'll have a ton of donks. That's not really what we studied. When the middle card pairs, we're more likely to have some things where we bet out. Now, I do think we can probably raise. I don't really know why it gives these two different raise sizes. They're so similar. Like, why does it matter? I don't know. I guess I'll the big one. No, it just wants a call. Wow. Okay, so that's a mistake, right? That's like a half a big blind mistake. And it really just wants me to let them keep betting. So we can replay the hand, but I'm not going to replay hands. We're just going to keep going. So I find this a little surprising, but I guess it's just like, yeah, you just let them keep betting. There are a lot of draws that you want them to barrel off with, I guess. And I don't know. I feel like I've got to be pretty high up in the range, right? I mean, you see it up there. It does look like their top of range is still bigger, stronger than mine. I guess they have more like ace 10, king 10. I don't know, just percentage wise in their range. But yeah, all right. So if we look at range, basically I'm like almost never raising on this card, which I think is interesting. I would have thought that there's going to be some raises, but yeah, you get to fold a fair amount, and actually you continue, you call a lot. Okay, so next hand. But you know, the flop was fine. So this is going to be a check. I believe we're just checking range pretty much on this board. I mean, maybe we have more nuts than them, so we get to raise or lead some, but we don't lead. And I don't think we need to continue that much on a board like this. 2 undercards, even with the double backdoor, I think we get to fold. Yeah, so that's just a pure fold. That was correct. And you'll see the total EV loss does not go down, but the average EV loss does, right? Because it's the total EV loss, I guess, divided by number of hands or something. All right, so they check to us. This kind of board, I don't think we have any real prior things about, I guess, queen high boards, we were doing a lot of the larger betting, so maybe we want the larger betting. I'm still going to go small. I think we can go small with range here, and that'll probably turn out fine, but perhaps we want to use the larger sizing. So yeah, we can see that is correct. It uses all the sizings, right? And with this hand, it also uses all the sizings. So that's nice to see that, you know, the logic's kind of decent there. Now, if I'm betting this, I feel like I'm kind of turning it into a bluff, which I don't think makes a ton of sense. I don't think I can get value from a 7 or a 6 here that much. I don't think I'm supposed to. Hands that are going to keep betting are going to be my good top pair hands, like probably king, queen plus, certainly 2 pair or better. And then I'm going to have a lot of combo draws. So with that many draws, like, it doesn't really work. I think some people think like you're supposed to go and find more value hands if you have a bunch of bluffs you want, but I don't think that's how it works. I think you have, which hands can you bet for value? Can I bet this for value? I don't think so. Solver agrees, but it does want me to use some of those large sizings here with my range, right? If we look at what it wanted me to do, bet the like 3/4 or 2/3 and bet pot and a half pretty often with my range, but not that hand. And they check, and I think I have to check again. Maybe I can get value against a 7 or a 6. Against a human, I might do that. But here I think they are going to accurately check a 10 pretty frequently. I'm not sure. Possibly I can use one of the smaller sizings for value, but no. And they have pocket 8s, and our snowmen can hold hands. Fantastic. So that hand, perfect, nice. I feel like I'm thinking through the hands differently, even if, you know, the success ratio isn't necessarily any better. But I do feel like doing this 2 hours a day for a month, you know, I'll probably get a little better. Okay, high paired board. What did we say about high paired boards? I believe it is bet range for small, right? Boards with mostly, right? I think. Yeah, so there it is, right? Range, small. And they check raise, and you know, we have nothing. So we fold the backdoor 5 high flush draw. And they flop the nuts, which, yeah, they're supposed to mix calls and raises. So that's cool. All right, hilarious. All right, king 7-4. Not a lot of real specifics about a board like this. I do think in spots like this, we're going to lean towards betting third pot with range or close to range. Pocket 9s are a perfectly good hand to bet. Pocket queens or pocket 6s might make a better check back. This is just a little bit higher than the 7, so we can get value from the 7, and we can deny equity from hands like, you know, from like the queen jack 10 range, right? So I'm going to bet third pot. Solver likes it, but it's fine with checking a fair amount as well. Right, overall with the range, it pretty much agrees with my assessment. Now we turn fantastic. The board's very wet, but nobody can have like anything better than 2 pair or a set so far, right? So I think this is a spot where we do a lot of overbetting. I'm unblocking top pair. I'm unblocking all the draws. Feels like a great spot for an overbet to me. I go for it, and they fold pocket 3s. Okay. But it's interesting to see they're supposed to call pocket 3s there. Are they this pure? Wow. Interesting. I would not have guessed that. I think it's because they have the hearts, right? They can probably fold without the hearts. But yeah, if you look at it, it likes 3/4 or the overbet for my hand and my range as well, right? So I feel happy with that one. Let's move on. Okay, top set. I don't think we're going to really have many leads on this board. Probably some, but not a ton. Yes, and if we are leading, my hand is a good hand to lead. Are we going to have check raises on a board like this? Monotone boards were fewer check raises. Here we're going to have all the sets. That's good. We're going to have bottom two pair, I think, 5-3 suited some. And we're going to have a lot of combo draws. So yes, I think we do get to do a good amount of raising. This is probably among the sets that we would slow play the most because we can't get value from like ace 10, king 10, but there's aces, kings, queens, jacks, tons of hands to get value from. I think we put in the raise. And yeah, the solver wants to mix. It's fine with the raise. It's fine with the call. And now on this card, I think we actually probably check a lot with our range. However, with this hand, I think we can keep betting. Do we need to use like an overbet here, or can just pot? Pot, if we do pot, then river's like slightly overbet, which I think is fine. I really am not sure about bet sizing here. I think we probably go for a double check raise some. I'm going to use the pot, but I wouldn't be surprised if it prefers like any of the other sizings. Oh, it looks like it appreciates my sizing choice. Nice, good to see. They fold pocket sixes, so they do call the check raise there. They're blocking some straight draws, and they don't have the backdoor flush draw, so that's a little surprising. Let's see, that's going to be a pure call of the check raise. So, you know, that's something to get used to understand, like, yeah, these pairs, you got to defend them a lot, right? Can't fold pairs to check raises that often when there's, you know, so many draws that can be check raising. Okay, so far so good. Queen Jack offsuit, and okay, yeah. So paired board, small paired, we're betting range unless the pair is deuces. So basically range for third pot. That's pretty much correct. You can do some larger bets and some checking here, but this is pretty good. All right, this board, lots of high cards. Yeah, I think they don't get to check raise much, so I feel like we should get to bet, but I think we can actually probably just like, we can check this back some, I would imagine. I think big bet sizes were decent here. I'm gonna go with the small bet size though. Yeah, so it's like pure bet size. So so that was correct, but I was a little incorrect in not having confidence that this is just a range third pot spot, right? So see where we are next. King Jack 7. I think this was also one of the, I think these two high card boards we get to bet larger. Am I wrong? I mean, I definitely want to bet this hand. I think third pot's fine. When in doubt, basically just bet third pot, right? I think is a way to go about it. So yeah, the larger sizings are also fine, but it leans towards this size. Now I've picked up a 10. I don't feel like this is a card I really want to bluff on. I mean, I can have some bluffs here for sure, but those would more likely be, you know, some combo draws. What do I have for value? I probably c-bet with ace queen. I've got some queen 9 suited that might have c-bet. I've still got a bunch of two pair and set combos. Aces, ace king, I wonder if they can keep getting value here. I don't think this makes much sense as a value bet or a bluff, so I'm going to check it. I don't really think I have great blockers for anything either. This is, yes, a pure check. And my range is using some larger bet sizes, though mostly kind of like half pot. And they bet really small. And I'm trying to think, like, what bluffs can I mean, I don't think this is a call. It's a call some, yeah, apparently, huh? Like, what are their bluffs? Like 7-6 pocket. Oh, they probably, you know what? I'm gonna click through on this one because so what we can do here is we can go down here and we look at their line, right? And then I think we click into that and hopefully, yeah, it'll open another tab and we'll take a look. And it shows that, yes, these small pairs, these are their bluffs. these little cards, they've got all these flush draws that they called. They've got these small pairs that they called, and those are bluffing. Yeah, good. Okay, so they have a decent number of bluffs, and for that reason, I'm actually supposed to, you know, when they bet, like, let's look at my range, right? We can, and that's the nice thing. You can always like pause from your study, whatever, and you just go like, okay, let's do a different bit of study from your training, right? Pause from the training. So what have we got here? We've got they're going to be betting a bunch of queen, right? Ace queen is betting. Ace queen is betting. Ace king is like, these are mixing. Oh, not betting. Sorry, raising. Of course we're raising with the nuts. Aces are mostly folding against this sizing. That's amazing. And then some of them are raising. Bluff, I guess. The ones that are unblocking the nut flush draw are raising. I don't know. It's weird. Ace king is also raising some. Like, this is a really hard spot to play well, I think. And I'm not going to dig too deeply into it. But I've looked at some of these things, and they're, you know, they're tricky. Obviously, you know, we're never folding a straight here, and we're not raising much with a straight. That's an 8 either. The queen we're raising with some, and the ace queen we're obviously always raising. Okay, back to the training. Where are we at? We're at 100 minutes. Okay, next hand. King 10. This board, small, disconnected. I think we're using larger bet sizes, and we are checking a decent amount on these boards. So I think this can be a bet or a check. I think we're mixing with this hand. I like that it blocks like 10-9 suited and king-9 suited, as they don't have those offsuit combos really. So, you know, it doesn't want this bet size. Doesn't like that, right? But it's, I mean, it doesn't hate it. But mostly, if we bet, we want to bet larger. And yes, we are mixing checking and betting. And we do a good amount of checking on this. And the bets are the larger size. So I don't know why I went with a smaller size. I think that was like, I had my logic, but then I didn't stick with my logic. So that's an error. All right. Small paired boards, bet big, right? Bet big. No, that was on the trips, right? Small paired boards. It's really only the deuces that we bet big, I think. So here, basically just bet small range, pretty much. Not quite range, but you know, a lot of these things we'll see the solver has this very complicated strategy, but we can find a simplification where we're going to lean towards betting range, and we can use some kind of randomizer that says, yeah, actually, you know, 20% of the time we're going to find checks, and then with certain hands we're like, well, maybe we'll do 30% with that hand. Okay, here we can just fold to the check raise. Pretty straightforward. They win with 6 high. Good for them. Well played. Non-sarcastically, like that's what they're supposed to do. All right, monotone boards, we're only using third pot, right? That's something that we learned today. So I'm going to go with the third pot bet, and we'll see what happens. And they fold, and it likes it, right? Third pot or check. And with this hand, we can check or we can bet. You know, remember to check back some flushes, some flop flushes. And you want to induce some bluffs, and, you know, protects your checking range, and bet some of them as well. Okay. Ace 7-4 in the big blind. All right, so now let's remember on these ace high boards, it was more on the ace high, like multiple high card boards, we don't have to defend that much, right? Here, this is a hand that feels like we probably want to defend it, but against this sizing, I'm not so sure, right? I wouldn't be surprised if you can mix calls and folds here, but it's possible that just clearly it's one or the other. With the diamond, like without the diamond, I think it's just an easy fold. I think the king of spades is bad. I think we don't want to block the backdoor flush draws that they could be betting with, like king 10 of spades and king 9 of spades and stuff like that. So I am going to fold, but I won't be surprised. Yeah. Calling is -4-2. So yeah, so the clear fold, pure fold, right? So, and as we see, we're folding overall 46% of our range roughly on this board. So that is a, you know, it's a good thing to remember. Like, yeah, okay, we get to fold a good amount on boards like that. All right, king jack on queen 5 deuce. Like, this feels just like a bet range for third pot. The 5 and the deuce, I mean, the 5 does hit their range a little more than mine. And we had seen that a lot of Queen X boards, we get to go big size. However, I think those were a little bit more connected. I'm going to use the smaller sizing, and it can go third or half, both fine with this hand and with the range. They raise, and I don't think we continue this. Yeah, and they're doing well in their semi bluffs, you know. But you know, overall average EV loss is down to 0.04, which I'm pretty happy with. Earlier we didn't do that many hands, and I think I was a little lucky to have it be as, I think it was the same. Here, okay, Jack 5 deuce. I think this is like third pot close to range. We can probably get away with some larger bets as well. This hand is definitely a hand that I'm interested in betting. Yeah, so third pot close to range. We use a fair amount of checks and a little bit of the larger sizing. This, if we want to barrel, we want to use the big size, I believe. And I do think that we can do this a lot. I'm going to have a lot of King X that bet, like King Queen. I'm going to have a bunch of King Jack. I think I can go big here. And there's not going to be a ton of hands they can continue with. Yeah, so big is fine. Less big is also fine. And so they fold eights, right? Here, I've got a combination of, I mean, I have a little bit of showdown value. If they have like Queen 10 and they call, like I can check back and win. But I'm beating, you know, and I'm beating some of the other straight draws too. But like if they call with some stubborn call, and I bink a 3, then the pot's big enough. Maybe I just jam river. And I've got a lot of king, like they're going to have less kings in their check call range, I think. We can look more at their range specifically. Yeah, like this is, I think this is their range, right? We can just pop that up. Again, I'm still learning a lot of the, how things work here. Yeah, this is their range. I'm not sure if this is their range then or before. Yeah, this is probably their range to the turn, right? So they have a decent amount of King X. But my range also has, you know, some amount. We supposedly don't take this line all that often, and that's why it's such a low percentage, but let's move on. All right, so we're just, I mean, we're checking range on this small paired board, and I think we get to give up a fair amount on these. You know, I mean, we do have 2 overcards. I think we want like an ace, a king, or like a backdoor at least. So I think we can fold just about pure. Yeah, and we fold a decent amount. Actually, of our range, we don't fold that much. That was off. That was incorrect. But we certainly can fold this hand. Although it is close, right? We look at it and it's like -0 EV to call. So with the backdoor, I'm sure we would want to continue. Like Queen Jack of clubs, for instance, or any other suit. All right, so this is a spot where I feel like I would do some check raising against like real people. This is a board that they're supposed to actually use the larger bet sizings on, right? And I've got a double gut shot. I'm gonna have some deuce X that, you know, didn't get a chance to check raise. I am going to have these smaller cards. I think the big overpairs, they would be betting pretty frequently. So I like a bet here. I think often like half pot's a good way to go, but I think this solver likes third pot a lot, but I'm going to hit half pot anyway. It's just like definitely bet this hand, use whatever sizing. Look at that. It actually wants the even bigger sizings. It likes those. All right. So is this a good bluffing combo? I mean, am I blocking anything I want to block? I'm blocking 4 or 5 of diamonds, I guess, which like maybe they could have. I'm blocking 6-5 of diamonds, which could call. Pocket 8s, which I don't think take this line that much. So I don't think it's a great bluffing combo, but it does feel like a spot where it's like checking. I mean, this is among the worst hands I can have. I'm unblocking spades. I like that, right? So let's go ahead and bet. How much are we going to bet? Are we going to bet small or medium or large? I don't know. I think we might get away with a small bet here if we're going to have any, because basically we're like repping a 6 or pocket 5s or 7s or something and trying to get like king high spades to fold or like jack high to fold. So I think small's okay, but maybe we want to use bigger and less frequently. Yeah, it doesn't like the sizing. It considers that a significant mistake. We do get called, right? They call? They should call, I assume. Ace high. Whereas if I'd used the bigger sizings, yeah. So I was right, don't check, but use the bigger size. It wants to shove. Like, it wants to shove 48% of the time with this hand, which is just, it's like 8x pot. So it does these weird things. I'm a little skeptical, but like, I don't know, if you have ace 8 and they shove, then it's like, well, you know, they're not value betting 7s, right? Like, they're not value betting a 6. I feel like it makes my range so small, but I guess I've got boats and they don't have a lot of boats, and I'm blocking a boat, and I don't know. That's weird. That's weird. The all in. I can understand my bet being too small, but it's pretty. Yeah. Okay. Next hand. Okay. We'll do like 20, right? Okay. So king 4. This board, I don't think we have a lot of leads, and I don't think we need to continue that often. Yes, we have a gut shot, but we have so many flush draws, pair plus straight draw. I think we can fold this. Yeah, pure fold. And they have top set. All right, 2 more. 10-9 suited. This board, again, I don't think we donk it. And what do we do against a check back? Are we going to, like, this doesn't feel like the best. I think we want a heart. We're going to have a lot of 1 heart hands. Yeah, so we check this, and we're just going to give up. And on the river, like, do we want to start bluffing this on the river? Maybe. I don't think we necessarily care if we have a heart at this point. Basically, we've got, like, one of the worst hands we can possibly have. Blocking 9-8 suited, 10-8 suited, which seem like some possible check back hands. Pocket 10s, pocket 9s, maybe. So I think we can go for a bet. I'm going to bet half pot this time. Okay. It's fine with that. It says, yes, bluff this hand mostly. And then they raise, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, really? Against a real player, I'm just like, really? But like, even their bluffs have us beat, so I don't, yeah, okay. So they checked back a flush, right? So remember to have some flushes in your check back range. And if we look there on the, where is it, on the turn, we can see, actually, they're supposed to check that hand not that much, but, they rolled low, and so they checked it back. All right. Last hand. Ace jack suited. Okay, this double board, high board. Oh, all right. Paired board. Mostly we are betting third pot range, I believe, right? Yeah. Look at that. Okay, we learned a thing. We learned at least one thing today. I did. I mean, maybe you didn't learn it. Maybe you already knew it. Probably if you're interested in these videos, right? But whatever. Okay, ace jack, king 8 deuce. What are we doing with this? The board is I don't think there's that much merit in continuing to bet. Yeah, okay, I think I'm spacing out because I'm a little bit low on, I've reached my the extent of my powers of focus. That's fine. Okay. Why would I bluff this? Am I getting better to fold? Probably not. And I've got showdown value. So let's show it down and take half the pot. Cool. All right. So minus 0.05 EV loss average. And that's it for this. You know what we didn't do? We didn't do like pre-flop training. I should have done some pre-flop training. That's what I'll do next time. Maybe we'll wrap up with that. We'll do a little bit of that. I was gonna wrap up. Let's just come back to the notes, right? Where we look at this and we say, okay, at the top. All right. So Lojack raise first in versus big blind call. Overall, when check to, Lojack checks back 37%. That's significant. Bets third pot 40% and uses larger sizings 11 and 12% respectively. On monotone boards, check back a little more. Bet small, never bet larger, right? Two-tone boards play pretty close to that average. And rainbow bets the most frequency, probably defaulting to bet 33% with range. Paired boards, we're never using the big sizing unless it's a deuce-deuce on board. Trip boards, we bet range. Small on big trips, big on small trips, medium on medium. Unpaired boards and unpaired disconnected boards pretty much just follow whatever other guidelines we had already. So in this spot, as the Lojack, we're going to default to checking some, betting third pot some, bet bigger a little bit, right? Default to betting third pot with range, but there's individual boards that will do differently. When you're the big blind facing a small C bet, call about half the time, raise about 3/8. I'm sorry, raise, fold 3/8, fold 38%, and raise about 15% of the time, right? 1 in 7 times, more or less. Boards with mostly high cards, we get to fold a lot. Small to mid connected boards, we fold rarely, less than 25%. Small connected boards, mid paired boards, mid connected boards, we check raise a lot, right? So those little boards, the mid boards, we get a lot of check raising in. We do the least check raising on monotone, ace high wheel boards, double Broadway monotone boards. Really, those monotone boards, we just check raise a lot less. The monotone boards we check raise the most are like ace high and some king high ones. I don't even remember that. That's weird. Okay. Well, I'll watch the video again. Fold a lot on trips boards, like 50% overall. All right. So that's the recap, and we'll just do a little bit of pre-flop play, right? And tomorrow, maybe I'll be a little more organized in terms of how I go about setting up the scenarios. And tomorrow we'll probably do hijack versus big blind and try and kind of compare. I want to do a new session, and we're going to say Lojack. I'm going to clear this, and just from start, right? So we will do basically some Lojack hands. We'll do, what'll we do? We'll do 20 of each, and then we'll just like fold the flop. 10 of each. 10 of each. Okay. So we fold, and we fold. And this is the sort of thing you can just sit down, and I think this is a great warm-up for a poker session, right? You just go like, okay, let me, just get in the hang of it. And you don't necessarily have to do one position. You can do other positions. Maybe let's do 20 Lojack and 10 big blind, since we are going to have, we can do exactly against the thing, right? Yeah, okay, we'll do that. All right, so far this is pretty straightforward. You do a lot of folding in the Lojack. That's basically the moral of the story. And because you do a lot of folding in the Lojack, you're going to have a very strong range when you get to the flop. That range is going to have a big advantage on the big blind, and you're going to be able to put a lot of pressure on the big blind. I didn't mention this earlier, but the Lojack is near and dear to my heart, as I'm the one who named it, because I was playing 6 max limit Holdem, and every other position had a name. And people were like calling it under the gun, but I'm like 5-handed hijacks under the gun, 4-handed cutoffs under the gun. We can't call this. Okay, so this we can actually mix calls and folds. We can look at the roll, it's low, so we're actually gonna fold it. And we'll see if we can get 0 playable hands and 20 hands at the Lojack. No, we have to play ace-7 suited. We will end up seeing a flop where someone will 3-bet us, and I think we'll probably fold to a 3-bet against the hijack. Oh. All right, that means it's almost time to wrap up. I think this might be a full Neapolitan. I think we definitely mix some folds and calls. Oh, pure fold. All right, one more. And this is going to be a fold. Okay, so we managed to play perfectly in the Lojack, having exactly one or two, that's silly. Reasonable decisions. So here I'm going to select the starting line. We're going to go under the gun versus big blind, but then can I click in there? And no. Wait, okay, we're going to try this. We're going to see if this works. I'm going to go to start training, and then this is going back to the flops. I don't want to go back to the flops. What I want to do is I want to go to this and train this. Can I train this? And now we hit play. Yeah, there we go. All right, so now we're going to play the big blind. Oh, no, is this not doing it? Yeah, there we go. As the big blind, right? So raise 250, 4 folds, and start training. And I think this should work. We should be the big blind facing a Lojack raise. Yes. Okay, so we'll do 20 of these, and we'll take it from there. And fold, yeah. This one, I think, is actually a mix, but we're going to call. Yeah, so it is a mix. And then we're not going to really worry too much about post flop. We're just going to check fold. And maybe we'll do 10 because we're going to see a lot of flops probably. This one, ace 8. I think this was actually a fold, right? It was a fold. Yeah, pure fold. Okay. And I'm like literally kind of looking at the matrix of hands in my mind, which if you look at it and then you close your eyes and try and visualize it, and then you open your eyes and look at it and close your eyes and visualize it and kind of check back and forth, I think you'll develop the ability to do that. I would not say I'm phenomenal at it, but I think I'm decent at it, and it is something that I think is worth developing. Now, this is a thing that I would definitely call against the 2.25 raise, but against the 2.5, it's going to be a fold. It's actually a mix, right? We can play it a little bit. That's right, those weak queen X hands, we can play a little. And we're clearly going to fold this, and we'll do 2 more. Wait, did we do 20 Lojack? Maybe this is fun. This we can mix calls and raises. Let's throw a raise in. Yeah, see, so it is mix. And oh, now we have to play a 3-bet pot out of position. Well, this is probably okay. I'm not sure. I think we have such a nuttiness advantage. I feel like we probably bet half pot. No, it wants a smaller sizing, but it doesn't hate this. We get called. Now I think we have to start checking. I don't think we get better to fold that much, and I don't think we get worse to call that much. So it's kind of a perfect check. And now on the river, like now maybe we can turn this into a bluff, but I think we just check and try and realize against a hand like king queen. Yeah, it says we can bet a little bit, and they had king jack and they got there. So okay, last hand, and then we are going to wrap it up. Let's put the raise in again. Again, this is a mix of call and raise. And we could look at the number we roll, but I don't think that matters that much. Here, this is a board that I think I do a ton of checking. And if I'm betting hands, this is probably a decent one to bet, although it doesn't really block much of their continue range aside from nut flush draws. So I think I'm going to go ahead and check, but I do think this will be a mix. It's mostly betting. And overall, my range does a fair amount of betting on this board. Ooh, on that turn, I feel like I'm not blocking anything I want to block. Am I unblocking things I want to unblock? Like, oh, I think check now, right? Pure check now. And unless they overbet, I think I can call. And on the river, once there's a deuce, maybe now I can actually bluff. It doesn't feel that convincing. I am still beating king queen and king jack. What better bluffs do I have? What value do I have? Kind of feels like none of anything. I think I continue giving up, but maybe this is supposed to be a bluff. Maybe this is one of the best bluffs. Yeah, pure bluff. Pure bluff, that's a mistake. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to bet pot, basically. Just like, yeah, I totally have like a 7, or like I slow played queen jack. Yeah, of course. So anyway. All right. That's about it. Thank you so much if you've been hanging out this whole time, and if you sit through this whole video on YouTube. These are kind of videos and streams I'm making for myself that I think will likely be useful and or interesting to like-minded individuals, of which I don't know how many there are. So whatever. Anyway, if you've made it this long, please hit like and subscribe. There's going to be another one like this just the next day. And tune in tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific Daily Time. And if you're here on Twitch, today at 4:30 Pacific Time, I'm going to be talking about Kenobi, podcasting with the Ethical Panda, Matthew Fox, and Ashley Coffin. And yeah, have a great day. Peace.